This video will show you how to confirm if a vendor is an approved supplier in Fiscal. You will need to be certain that the vendor you intend to do business with is an approved Fiscal supplier before performing any transaction. This probably feels familiar because before Fiscal, we always checked if vendors were in our CAL FIRE vendor table, which we navigated to through the CAL FIRE intranet page. Our CAL FIRE vendor table is not applicable to Fiscal. The vendor numbers are not the same as Fiscal supplier IDs. Once Fiscal has gone live for CAL FIRE, you will not use this table anymore. You also likely recall that for some time we have been required to write the Fiscal supplier ID for all vendors on the top of our purchase documents. We found this by using an immense PDF or Excel sheet downloaded from the CAL FIRE intranet webpage. This list is no longer up to date. There are now more vendors in Fiscal than appear on it. Using it to check if a vendor is in Fiscal will give you false negatives and thereby cause you unnecessary work if you start trying to get a standard 204 and so on. Instead, there are several ways you can search for a supplier in Fiscal to find out if it already exists in the system and is approved for purchasing. Generally, anytime you need to know a supplier number when working in the system, Fiscal will provide a magnifying glass icon next to the field, so you can click, get a pop-up search window, and look up the supplier. This video will show you the most effective way to look up a supplier before you've started making your purchase order, when you just need to check if the supplier is in the system, so you'll know if you need to go get a standard 204 from the vendor and enter the supplier yourself, or if you're all set. Once you have logged into Fiscal, which is covered in a previous video, click the main menu drop-down. Go down to Suppliers, Supplier Information, Add Update, and Review Suppliers. This is a lot of menu navigation to do every single time you want to look up a supplier, so I recommend adding this page to your favorites. Do that by clicking Favorites, Add to Favorites, and you can name the favorite whatever you'd like. Then click OK. In the future, you can then find the direct link to this page under your Favorites drop-down in the top left of your Fiscal screen. From this interface, you can search for Fiscal suppliers by many methods. There are a lot of fields here, but if you're just checking to see if a supplier is in the system, there are only a few you'll be using. These ones. I'll talk about each of them in turn. If I don't mention a field, it's probably not one you'll commonly use when looking up a vendor. Directly in the center of the top half is the name field. Here, you enter the name of the supplier you're looking for. To the left is a drop-down menu with the options equal to, contains, and not equal to. If you choose equal to in this drop-down, you must get the supplier name exactly right in order for the system to find it. Your second option is contains, which could be a bit more useful if you know at least part of the name for sure and enter just that part. Below this line, you'll find a similar situation with the address field. To the left of it is another drop-down with the same options as for name. Since some people will abbreviate terms like street, road, lane, avenue, and so on, and others don't, you're probably better off changing this drop-down to contains and entering just the street number and street name. On the far right, you can also enter city, country, state, and postal code of the vendor you're looking for. One more pair of useful fields is the ID type. We always use TIN, so don't change it. It links up with this unlabeled field in the center column, where you can enter a supplier's SSN or FEIN if you have it. Perhaps you have a new standard 204 in your hands right now and are wondering if you need to enter it as a new supplier. You can pull the FEIN or SSN right off it and enter it here, without dashes, to see if that business is already in Fiscal. When you've entered the text you want to search with, you just click Search to see the results. Let's look at some examples. Example 1. For name, I enter Big Basin Water. Which is the water company for Jameson Creek Station. I think that's the correct name, so I leave it as equal to and search, but I get no results. Maybe I got the name slightly wrong, or it's a little bit different than what I think it is. So I change it to contains, try search again, and now I get 2 results at the bottom. I can see the supplier ID now here in the 3rd column, and I see that both these 2 addresses for Big Basin Water Company have the same supplier ID. Probably one of them is a mailing address and one is a business location. But these results don't tell me if this supplier is both approved and open for ordering. To check that, I can click this next tab called Additional Supplier Info. Here I check for 2 things. I will look to see the status in the 1st column, and I will look for open for ordering here in the 2nd to last column. I need to see approved and check boxes. If I do, I can confidently move forward with making the purchases from this vendor. If you want to do another search, you can click this search button, this clear button, to clear the results and start over. Example 2. If I have a standard 204 in front of me right now, and I'm wondering if the vendor is in Fiscal, I can enter the tax identification number, the FEIN or SSN, here in this box. For example, here's a standard 204 for NorCal Specialties. I could use any data from it in order to search, but for this example, I'll use the FEIN. The FEIN is a number unique to each business, so even if the name is slightly different, like maybe when it was entered, someone left out the dash between Nor and Cal, or the address is a different business location, the FEIN will still turn it up if it's in Fiscal. Be sure to clear your previous search, then enter the FEIN without dashes here in this box, and click Search. You can see it's thinking for a moment. This might look confusing at first because it's on the 2nd tab. Fiscal remembers where I was the last time I did a search. So I go back to the main information tab and I see NorCal Specialties right here. I can confirm this address is the one that is in fact on my 204. And back to this tab, I see it's approved and open for ordering. I'm ready to go with this vendor. Example 3. How about something harder like Home Depot? They have many stores at different addresses. A search for the name Home Depot turns up only 2 results with different supplier IDs, and neither even have California addresses. They don't appear to be useful to me, but just to check, I go to the 2nd tab, and sure enough, they're to be archived, and they're not open for ordering. The boxes aren't checked. So there's something going on with these vendors. And I can't use them. But does that mean there's no valid Home Depot in Fiscal? Well, I failed to change my equal to dropdown to contains. If I change that and try a search again, well, now it's turning up 63 different results for suppliers that have the words Home Depot somewhere in their name. It displays 10 results at a time, and using these arrows, I can flip through my different results. I notice that some of these have the same supplier ID with different addresses, because a business can have multiple locations with the same FEIN and thus the same supplier ID. If I'm looking for a particular store, for example, one in Santa Rosa, I can put the city in and search. And it turns up a Home Depot at this address in Santa Rosa. I can check the second tab. I see it's approved and open for ordering. I can go there, buy things, and use this supplier ID when I do my purchase order. Perhaps I search for one in a different city, like SoCal. I know there's one in SoCal. I looked it up. I've been there, but there are no records for it. It is not in Fiscal. Before I can buy at the SoCal Home Depot, I will need a standard 204 from that location with that location address on it to be added to Fiscal, and specifically to the same supplier ID that matches the tax identification number for Home Depot that is already in the system. This is good for just checking if a supplier is approved and open for ordering, but perhaps you're looking for some more information than that. Say I look up Studley's Small Engine Service. I'm not certain of the name, so I'll just put Studley's and change the equal to contains and search. Ah, there it is. It turned it up. I can look at this other tab, see it's approved and open for ordering. But if I want to know more, I can go to the Actions link and click Maintain Supplier. A new tab will open, and here you can view the entire vendor record for this supplier. You'll become familiar with these records, especially if you begin entering new suppliers. There's a summary page that gives, again, approved and open for ordering, the address, the supplier ID. I can go to identifying information and see more about the vendor, including any attachments like the standard 204 that's been attached to this record. I can go to the address tab. If there were additional addresses, I could click through them using these arrows, but this one says there's only one address. If I wanted to contact Studley's, I can look at the Contacts tab and see if there's any information about how to contact them. Although unfortunately on this one there isn't, but I can go back, look at the standard 204 that's attached here, click on that, and I'll be able to view the contact information for this vendor. If you are unable to find a supplier in Fiscal, or find the address of a supplier you're buying from that is in Fiscal, such as in the case of the Home Depot in SoCal, you will need to either create a new supplier record or modify the record by adding the business location, depending on the situation. Both of these processes will be covered in a different video.